hand it to a responsible person.
I'm hoping
there not being one here.
I hope we can bring you out of your shell and get you to express yourself.
Okay.
Oh, she needs no bringing out of any shell.
She and Zorko are both in the show.
It's okay.
Yes,
Speak
we
up.
are.
Speak up. We want to hear. You can do it.
Ooh. Is it okay with the lights and everything? There is a manual thing, so you may try that.
Well, actually, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started so we can spend most of the time dedicated to our two speakers today. I want to welcome you to our third installment of Cronkite Global Conversations for this spring 2016, and I want to extend a special welcome to our friends and extended Humphrey family that are joining us via live stream. My name is Christy Kappas, and I'm the program manager with the Humphrey Fellowship Program. I extend my welcome to each of you, and also the welcome from our director, Dr. Bill Silcock. He's out of the office today, but he is watching via the live stream. So hi, Dr. Bill. A little bit about the Humphrey Fellowship Program, if you're not familiar. This is our 6th year of hosting Humphrey Fellows here at the Cronkite School at Arizona State University. And it's a program that brings together mid-career professionals from all across the world for 10 months of professional development and leadership development. There's many other aspects of their program involving interactions with our campus, our local community. I'm happy to see some of our Humphrey faculty mentors here today, as well as our friendship families. And then fellows also participate in a Humphrey seminar, and it's great to see some of our former Barrett attaches, Humphrey attaches here with us today. It definitely takes a village to run a Humphrey program, and so we just want to thank each one of you for your participation with the fellows. I would be remiss if we didn't mention our social media hashtags and postings. Please feel free. I think both of our speakers today are open to having their presentations tweeted out. We encourage you to visit our Facebook page and like our Facebook page and check back there for updates on our program. Next week will be our final installment of Cronkite Global Conversations. So I would encourage you to join us same day, same time, just beginning of March, featuring our Humphrey Fellows from the Philippines, from Latvia, and from Montenegro. But this week, we are honored to hear from two of our Humphrey Fellows who will be speaking on the global rainbow, LGBT expressions in Asia and Eastern Europe. First up, we will have Natalia Givashku from Moldova, followed by Namgezam from Bhutan. Also, before I forget, we'll be sending around this sign-up sheet for those that are here in the room with us. If you can just put your name, I have to submit that to the university for the food. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Natalia?
Sure. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. My name is Natalia Gilashko. I come from the Republic of Moldova, a country that wants to join the European Union, wants to accept democratic values and to prosper. I'm here to speak today about LGBT issues, and it's very interesting time for me to find out lots of similarities, but also some differences with the LGBT community in the Republic of Moldova and here in the United States. For today, I just presented a few slides that would be very interesting for you to find out what is the LGBT community struggling with most of the time. And before doing that, I would like to ask you about the choices. Because LGBT in the Republic of Moldova is considered a choice. So I found out a nice picture to introduce the topic, because being a hero is a choice, but being an LGBT is, and I would like to just have a few, let's say, suggestions from you. What do you think? What word would you include in this slash? Nobody? What?
Uphill.
Uphill. Okay. Yeah, that would be a bit appropriate. But why I'm raising this to you is because most of the religious people, especially, find out that LGBT is a choice, but the people in this community believe that this is not a choice. This is a reality that they have to live with. So before going to different,
It's okay, go ahead, do mine.
before going to expressing what LGBT means in Moldova as an Eastern European country, I would like to introduce you to this wonderful parade, Pride, that we all see all over the world. In the United States, colorful, full of surprises, full of joy, full of emotions, as you can see. These kind of pictures in Moldova, I think, will probably come in 10 years' time. But I will show you how it is at the moment. These are a few members of the LGBT community that tried in 2005 to do their first parade, first Pride. But actually, it is not that Pride, because as you can see, they have the rainbow sign, but they are not free to speak. And this is actually a moment that I wanted to show you that freedom of expression, especially of LGBT rights, is not that encouraged, because there are lots of differences and lots of limitations that these people face. I would also like to share with you some data that the Soros Foundation has come up with in a survey, and how welcome the LGBT people feel in Moldova and how much they are accepted. So as you can see from these figures, the most accepted are from behalf of the neighbors, like 40% would accept LGBT couples. Work colleagues would accept in proportion of 13%, and friends would accept as 10%. So the worst situation with LGBT people is actually with the family members, because if you would be open in a family to share about your struggles with the sexual orientation, it's most likely that only 4% of the families would accept these people. So you can imagine how many couples and how many young people struggle with this issue, going out of their houses and never talking about this. I would show you the a presentation of a parade that was organized a few years ago, and just to show you a few impressions of how these prides are organized in Moldova. When LGBT organizations announce a pride, in that day we would have protests from the religious groups, protests from other civic groups that are not very tolerant with these ideas. So here in front of Ștefan cel Mare, who is the king of Moldova, is basically a moment where most of the couples would come to express their pride, their joy that they are together, and you would never see LGBT couples in this square. Besides, you would see most of the religious people that would come up with a prayer to say that let's pray that Moldova will become moral and will escape this kind of behaviors that are not encouraged by Bible. So here you see the prayers from from a religious group. As you may know, in Moldova, 97% of the population is considered Orthodox. And because of this, the religious people would use the statistics to manipulate and to bring forward the idea that LGBT is a sin and people should avoid even considering it. So these are a few people that would speak, and on the other side, you would see the maybe 100 people compared to 2,000, where not only LGBT members would come up with, let's say, placards and rainbow, but there would be many supporters from NGO groups, from civil society, from international community. And as you can see, this is a platform where the community is expressing themselves, and it is quite a big surprise that at this moment we have the police that will try to protect the march against the people that are waiting beside this street, where they are saying you should not protest and you should go outside of the country. You would also see also people wearing masks, because if they would be opened, as you could see in the survey, they would have lots of issues at work, with family. They would not be likely to be accepted in a work environment, and they may risk their jobs. But there are also people like this, homophobic, that would try to go in the march and would try to use the opportunity just to beat these people. So the police is trying to really save the march and the protesters from these aggressive guys that would use the opportunity to express their aggressiveness. Also, you would see priests that would like also to go in this march and to express their aggressiveness. And for us, when we look at these pictures, we wonder, how can a priest be violent towards other people when they should promote tolerance, love, and acceptance? But they would never even consider to ask these kind of questions. Also, as I could see, there are most of the time international community coming to these events and trying to support LGBT agenda. And here is a message that they tell to the people.
And I'm so proud that you managed to walk today in such a wonderful city, which is Chisinau. Chisinau today is a rainbow city, and I'm so proud of that.
This is a member of the European Parliament that would yearly come to Chisinau and support these groups. And what is surprising is that in Moldova there are also very homophobic groups that would also come up during this protest. And I would like to show you their faces. So what they're saying here is, we will burden or it's a shame to come here and show your orientation, something like that. This would be the people that would go online and would pretend they are LGBT members, like gays and lesbians, and they will try to catch LGBT groups and beat them up in their houses or nearby their surroundings. So I thought it would be great to also introduce you one of the other members of the church that is spreading hate speech in the community. And there are lots of cases that he has already lost in front of the LGBT NGOs that are trying to stop this kind of cases. This is also a very sad picture. It's a symbolic picture actually, but 5 years ago there was a guy that was kind of catched up, kissing or being together with his couple in a very private place in a park, and the police office would threaten them that they will disclose their sexual orientation to their family, and they were trying to ask money for this. So in the end, this guy was so stressed and so fearful that he didn't want his family to find out that he was gay, and he ended up hanging up himself. Also, there are politicians that would not support LGBT groups, and this would be one of the socialist member of the party that used LGBT in his electoral spot to say that we will fight against LGBT and we will not accept sexual orientation as a protection from of the equality law that has been adopted a few years ago.
Nostre tradizionali, șmorala creștină. Distrugă valorile noastre tradiționale, guvernarea încearcă să distrugă valorile noastre tradiționale și morala creștină. Guvernarea sprijină mișcările unioniste. Partidul Socialiștilor luptă împotriva oligarhilor. Fiți împreună cu noi și vom înlătura această guvernare a disoluției.
So what is he saying in this quote is that the actual government who adopted the equality law is actually a threat to our moral public values, and we will stop this. There is also a blacklist where people like me and others who were trying to support this cause and to cover LGBT issues were put in a blacklist, and we were defamated because we protect the cause of LGBT. So indirectly, we would also be discriminated in a way. There is joy and there is hope within LGBT couples that they will find their marriage and they will be happy. This is actually one of my friends that got married in December. The only thing is that most of these people would not live in Moldova. They would go abroad and have a very nice and comfortable life. So yeah, this is one of the people that is in Canada now, and he looks happy. Now, what is the question of what to change? As you can see in the United States, there are lots of movements. It's going to get better. And this message has been taken by people in Moldova, and they tried to interview me for the first time when they launched up their platform and to come up with a positive message about LGBT. They collect these kind of messages on their website, and there are many other, let's say, leaders of the community, people that are not fearful to say that LGBT is all right and human rights should not be violated in Moldova. There are also a few spots that are very encouraging to change that attitude, and this is one of them, which says that you are a professional, but if you would discover that this professional is gay, would you still accept their services?
Вы нуждаетесь в нем, потому что он компетентен. Что, если бы вы узнали, что он гей?
What would you do if you would find out that he's gay? He was a doctor, and another spot is another profession. As you can see,
Цените его, потому что он талантлив.
he cooks. He's a cooker. Chef baker.
Что, если бы вы узнали, что он транссексуал?
But what would you do if you know that he's a transsexual? Yeah, and coming back to the United States, where you could see the Scout movements had some challenges here when they tried to not discriminate people, and as you can see, there are even children supporting this cause. While in Moldova, you would see this as a very bad message when children would come up on street or even see that a couple is together. So yeah, this is some ideas that I tried to introduce you, and if there are any questions, please to address them. Yes, Mark.
I noticed that the advertisements of the issue are in Russian.
Yeah.
Okay, can you explain why is it so?
There are examples also in Romanian.
And also the speeches on the protest were in Russian, so
Yeah,
is it somehow language?
I understand that. In Moldova, I guess the Russian community is more expressive than Moldovan, like Romanian, native Romanians. Probably this is because of a Russian community to be more outspoken than the Romanian themselves. I think this is the kind of my explanation or my observation of the differences. But the sport is actually in, you can find it also in Romanian, it's not a problem. Yeah, but there is a small distinction
So
between.
the community is more Russian speakers than the Romanian.
The community is both Romanian and Russian, but as I said, you would see more Russian community outspoken because the Romanian community is more shy, I guess, and yeah, this is my explanation of the facts. Yes.
So the ads you showed at the end with the, would you act the same way if you knew this person was gay or transsexual? First of all, who's putting together those ads? Is it an pro-LGBT group in Moldova, and also how difficult is it for them to get these ads to air on television in Moldova?
Good question. There was a tendency of the public TV to stop broadcasting. There was a case won by LGBT Center in Moldova against the public outlet. So because of this, they are now by law have to accept awareness, bringing awareness after having a case in court. And because of that, it took maybe 3 years to have such a case and to lobby to accept raising awareness on public TV. And this spot was done by LGBT center
Okay.
with the support of international funds. And one of the guys that is playing this spot, the guy in, I've been working with him in my last job. Yeah, so he found it okay to play this, and he's kind of very passionate about bringing up interesting spots, interesting ideas, like in terms of advertisement, and he has his own production company. And so yeah, it was a tender that this company won to do the spot. Yes, please.
Would a movie like The Danish Girl be played in Moldova or Russia?
It would be played probably in like film theaters, but not on public, I guess, not on TV. I only saw some sequences of this film. I can't say, like, I didn't go deep into this film, but I guess films with LGBT, let's say, scenes would not be broadcast.
Yeah.
Or if they would be broadcast, it would be only at midnight or after midnight. Okay, so if there are no other questions, thank you so much for hearing this message. And yeah, I'm really interested to get in touch and to see how American, let's say, groups or city groups would be helping this community, because as you can see, there is a hope there that things are going to change, and that's why I try to be more supportive. I have a website, discriminare.md, where I'm covering LGBT rights, people with disabilities, women's rights, and so on. So yeah, I even had a priest during my talk shows that I could hardly keep him calm to be able to have a dialogue with other, let's say, people in the studio, and there was a concern that I wouldn't be able to manage it because it was so tough discussions. This priest would not even consider to have a dialogue with a person that is gay or lesbian staying beside him. That is the profound, I guess, homophobic mentality in Moldova. Yeah, so we'll hear from. I hope Bhutan is better.
Different. Because better would mean comparing, and I don't know if comparison would be fair. So, okay. Hi, my name is Namgizam. I am from a small kingdom, yes, a kingdom, you had that right, called Bhutan. Gay and happy in Bhutan. This was my first blog post on somebody who was gay in the country, and from somebody's own perspective, instead of being narrated from the third person. Also featured the first voice of a gay person in a public domain. This also happens to be a play on development philosophy, which is well known, popular, was on NPR. Prime Minister was on TED Talks just a few days ago talking about gross national happiness. So this is a play on it. Okay, G&H, but for who? Also for gay people in Bhutan? So as of 2015, we recorded 9,000 people in the LGBTQ community. But the Penal Code of Bhutan, which came into existence in 2004, criminalizes homosexuality. So what is criminalizing the homosexual people in Bhutan? We have two articles, 213 and 214. As you can see, homosexual relations, it's unnatural sex, and the grading of unnatural sex is a petty misdemeanor, which means you can be imprisoned anywhere from 6 months to a year, but not more than that.
However, although this law has been existent since 2004, there has not been a single arrest, and not just because this has not been reported by the media, but the police records also show that nobody has been arrested on these grounds. So why do we have a toothless tiger? And how did the Penal Code of Bhutan come to be? Because if you were to look at religion, we are a Buddhist kingdom. Buddhism does not criminalize homosexuality. So what is? So how did this penal code happen? It's actually a colonial baggage. We had different legal systems previously, but then we decided, hey, let's import Western laws, stock and barrel, and that's how we got that homosexuality is criminal. And if you look at South Asia, Nepal, and we have a colleague from Nepal here, they are the most, they have decriminalized homosexuality. They did that in 2007, right after they became a democracy. Even India is very conservative when it comes to gay relations or when it comes to LGBTQ people in the country. But compared to the region, it's not so bad in Bhutan. So I was saying, well, I mean, you can take it from me or you can actually hear it from the horse's mouth. He is one of the most respected, celebrated Buddhist masters in our times. He is quite avant-garde for somebody in his field. I like to think of religion as a profession, but I think not everybody subscribes to that. But he makes films and he's very progressive. So I edited this. He made the statement in 2014. So it was something that was unprecedented. There were people, there were thousands of devotees who had come to listen to his talk. A lot of Burmese speak English, so this the talk was given in English as well. This was recorded for the national broadcaster, and I think it was about an hour, so they divided into 2 episodes. But what you're going to be watching is less than 2 minutes.
Your sexual orientation has got nothing to do with understanding or not understanding the truth. You could be gay, you could be a lesbian, you could be straight. We never know which one will get enlightened first. Probably lesbians. We never know. That it has got really nothing to do with it. But I know some of you would be argued by more traditional, people who may think that, oh, these kind of practices comes in the category of logamy, which is a sexual misconduct. Now, here you have to be careful because we mingle culture so much with culture and the situation so much with the truth, and we should not do that. Some people like cottage cheese, and some people like Swiss cheese. It's a bit like that. Really, and some people like both. And why not? And you should be really tolerant. I mean, tolerant is not even. I mean, you should not be tolerating this. Actually, you should be respecting it. Tolerance is not a good thing. If you are tolerating this, it means that you think it's something wrong, but you will tolerate. But you have to go beyond that. You have to actually respect this one.
So that's a short piece. Do a lot of Buddhist masters say what he says and do what he does? I would say no. Like I said, he is one of the more progressive ones. But do they encourage hate speech? Do they take stands on this? No, no public stands. Nobody comes out and says, this is wrong, it's unnatural. Almost everybody that I've interviewed in the monastic order have always said, as long as it does not harm anybody else, it is not wrong. And on these grounds, and also Buddhism, you don't judge. It's a non-judgmental religion. I like to think it's a way of life, because I'm not religious at all. But what gives us hope? And every time I annoy the lawmakers, they tell me, hey, we got the wonderful Constitution of Bhutan. And Article 7, which focuses on our fundamental rights, we have this wonderful clause, all persons are equal before the law and are entitled to equal and effective protection of the law and shall not be discriminated against on the grounds of race, sex, etc. So apparently this protects everybody else, but I don't understand why we have to live in a land where the laws contradict themselves. Why, if we have this and if this law is supreme, then why do we have something else, a contradictory law in the Penal Code of Bhutan, and a lot of people can pull up the Penal Code of Bhutan, and then you have to go to the district courts, then you have to go to the higher courts, and then we go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, according to the Constitution of Bhutan, but then that means suffering for at least 2 to 3 years. I mean, nobody has been arrested on the basis of the laws in the Penal Code, but there is the room for such arrests, and discrimination can happen. So how did I get involved with LGBT and working on LGBTQ stories in the country? There was this person who created LGBT Bhutan, made a Twitter handle as well as a Facebook page, and followed me on Twitter. And this was interesting because I was like, hey, I mean, I've been thinking about these people, but I don't know who they are, and I would like to be friends. So I sent a direct message to this admin, and the admin was studying outside of Bhutan, and the admin said he would be in the country for 2 weeks soon, and he said he'd get in touch with me once he was in the country. He did get in touch with me. He gave me a 2-hour notice on a weekend, and I was like, oh my god, I have no recording equipment, nothing. I had an MP3 player on me that day, and I was like, okay, let's see what happens. So I'm going to make you listen to something that I recorded on an MP3 player for a minute, so it's not going to be very torturous, but you will hear his voice, and I want you to listen to his voice because this was the first gay voice that anybody in the country had heard. And that's my website, amizam.com. Yes, promotions, also yeah, shameless. But yeah, I have some interesting stuff there.
It's not that I realized. I think there's always an imprinting inside, but from childhood, you know what you're attracted to. You know? You don't have to tell a small boy or a small girl, do you like girls or do you like boys? They always know it. And I think I was hurt for the things I don't want to accept it. I always wanted to be straight. For some reason, I mean, I just wasn't comfortable, you know. I always felt I was weird. I never was happy with it. So I was always conflicted, and I think that really showed off their personality. I always had mood swings. I always was moody. I always, even the smallest comment like ticked me off and I'd be off for like days and weeks. So it was back in college last year around October. I had a lot of time to think. I mean, I had internet, like unlimited internet. So I had YouTube, and I always read things online. So and you know, I like to get her a lot. So she has a big influence there.
So she inspired you to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, because every segment of hers, she always does tiny monologues, and she always has a tiny message in every episode of her show. So before whenever she came on TV, I used to change it because I always ran away from the whole idea of being gay. Because I did not want to be gay.
Did you know any other? So that was the voice, and I first did not want to put his voice online. I just wanted to write about it, but I thought I wasn't doing him justice because I could feel my own, I could feel my voice over his voice when I was writing it, and I didn't feel like it was fair. So I had to call him again, and he'd left the country by then. And I said, would you be okay with me sharing what you shared with me on its own without me having to try and explain what it was? And he said, and I was like, well, I could change how your voice sounds if you want me to do that. He was like, no, actually just put my voice out there, but don't tell people who I am. Because he was a student, and then he had a reason for that. He was saying, I would be happy to come on TV for you, but he's like, I don't have, then people will know me as the gay guy because I'm just a student right now. He wants to be an architect, and he said, maybe when I'm a really successful architect, then I'll come out and they'll be like, hey, that guy's an architect, and he happens to be gay. So it's a secondary thing. He's like, nobody looks at you and says, oh, she's straight and she's a journalist. So he's like, I don't want that to happen to me. And after this, after this went online, I had actually tried to pitch this to my newsroom as a story, but it was a weak pitch because I didn't know who the people were. I hadn't met him. But after this went online, it was shared a lot. It found a lot of traction. There was an audience for it. And then then I went back and pitched it again to the newsroom, and I said, hey, you know what? I actually know these people now. I can do a story, and there are people who are willing to come forward. And they said, yeah, go ahead and do the story. So I went ahead and did the story. It took me some time because although we are seen as a society that we don't have hate speech, nobody's putting a gun to the head of somebody who is homosexual and saying, we're going to kill you, we hate you. There are some people who express discomfort with the idea, but this community is largely invisible. So even though we have nobody's been arrested. Why are they invisible? So this is why I decided to actually find out more about these people. So it was a journey of discovery as well as exploration for me. So I came out with a story that I worked on for a couple of months. Even the health ministry is not too comfortable using the word homosexuality, and it's actually based on positive discrimination. They were saying if you say it's a homosexual, we don't know whether health service providers would be as non-discriminatory as people are at the policymaking level. So then they call them, it's a more scientific sexual term or a more medical, they call it NSM, which is men having sex with men. There was a survey that was carried out by people in the community because they wouldn't trust people outside of the community. And that was the survey that actually showed that there were 9,000 LGBTQ people in Bhutan, otherwise they were undocumented previously. I did the story, it was the National Broadcaster's first full-length website feature, and then everybody was like, hey, do you think you could do a radio program on this as well? And I was like, yeah, and I don't want to do a TV program because I was saying a lot of them are not comfortable coming on TV, and this was in 2013. So we went out on BBS, then it was somebody from ABC Australia wrote to me saying they wanted to put it up on their website because we didn't have a story like this written before. There was a lot of information. So then they shared it, and from there a lot of other websites picked up, and it was and you're like, quite amused by the lack of journalism ethics. So there were like Gaysa News and everybody else who decided to pull parts of my story that they found were interesting, especially the political, where they saw that there was political goodwill for this, and then they started to use it on their own story. And it was funny because the member of parliament, they talked about we have people with the same names, the first name and the second name, so they pulled up the National Land Commissioner instead of the politician, so that was interesting. So then you're like, okay, this is not a real story. After I did this, it was not intentional. I became an advocacy journalist for this group because the community started opening up and they started reaching out to me. And I felt, hey, I don't think there's anything wrong with this because journalists had to be sensitized as well among my own circles. They did not know the right terms to use. They didn't know how to be sensitive in interviews. I was on a radio interview with another journalist who asked me why I did this, and he got a lot of flack for the way he handled the interview because it showed how ignorant he was. So I felt, okay, I'm going to help them and then help people in my own circle to understand what this is. So besides the good reactions and love, there were also some other reactions, and I just copy-pasted this from the initial reactions to my story. So what is this? I thought this happened only in America, because of course everything bad is imported from the West. And there was, this should not be allowed at all in our country. The royal government must take some very serious steps to stop this. And there was a professor on Twitter, I didn't put his name up. I thought Nambi was a very rational being until she started going crazy about this LGBT thing. And in the corridors of power, one of them actually called me up and said, are you bisexual? Because everybody is saying you're passionate about this because you've been bisexual all along and you have an agenda. But I think this happens to a lot of people who take up LGBT issues in any country. So since I left Bhutan, 2014 to 2015, what has happened? There have been 3 publicly gay figures and several transgender who now have public lives with their real identities. They have not been ostracized by society. An HIV NGO takes up the LGBTQ cause in Bhutan because we have no LGBTQ NGOs. There has, however, been no amendment to the penal code, which is my personal browse. But there has been public dialogue on LGBTQ in many public forums and public spaces, which is very encouraging. Also, these 3 people changed my life. So the first boy, he came out publicly last year after college. He is the admin of LGBT Bhutan. He is 22 years this year. He invited me into a world that I did not know existed in Bhutan. The second boy is a bartender. He came up to me when I was at a club on the weekend, and he said, I've always wanted to meet you in person and to thank you for telling people that we're human beings as well. Nobody spoke for us before, and it's great that somebody like you did it. The third one is the first person in Bhutan to come out as gay on national TV. He is a government employee and lives in one of the more remote districts in the country, and we worried for him. I worried about it because I left, and it was one of my other journalist friends who interviewed him, and it was done in our national language, so it's a completely different audience. But he wasn't ostracized. In fact, a few months after he came out on national TV, his primary school, he was an alum of that school, and the principal called him up and said, hey, do you want to come and talk about your sexual orientation to students from grades 6 to 8, which was fantastic. So he got to go back and talk about who he really was. And because I know them and they changed my life, I feel such a need that it's almost, I feel like their lives need to be changed for the better as well. So why do I do the work that I do, not just as an activist, but also as a journalist, is to ensure that there's advocacy, education, as well as focus on health. Advocacy because they're still discriminated against, because it's seen as something that there wasn't even a vocabulary to describe people in the LGBTQ community in Bhutan. These young people went online and found the It Gets Better project that they saw on Ellen DeGeneres. He was referring to that in the audio blog post that I put and said, oh, so there's actually a language to describe who I am and how I feel and how I respond. Also, there needs to be an advocacy because the penal code does need to be amended. I think it's archaic, outdated, and it needs to be amended. There needs to be education because people need to understand that it's okay to not be straight. It's just one thing or the other. You can be straight or you can be gay. It doesn't have to, you don't have to choose one. But there's a lot of self-stigmatization. They think there's something horribly wrong with them and they don't know how to reach out for help. And also, I need to focus on health and mental and sexual aspects. Mental, of course, I mean, all of us have our own stresses in lives, but then it's completely different for people who are trying to fight, who are trying to hide who they really are because they think they need to fit in with society. I mean, I see it as a paradox because we're this country that's extremely tolerant, very compassionate, and then we still have a section of society that needs to hide who they are, and they have to work so hard at it. Sexual, there are HIV cases, and it's a men having sex with men that was done because they're like, oh, we need to promote safe sex. And I've heard, this is undocumented and not recorded, but from the people experientially, they've told me that safe sex is not a matter of concern for people in this community. And I've also heard that younger boys who are gay and who are reaching out to talk to somebody, they don't have people they can talk to, have been in situations with older men that they didn't want to get into. And most of these, a lot of the older gay men are married and have families in Bhutan, but they're all in the closet. What do I do in the time being when I'm in the US? I pick fights with people back home. So then there was, a story that came out that quoted me and my work and what I think about these things. And then I shared it on my page, and this guy responded and he said, my ignorance, I still fail to understand why people have to declare their personal traits and sexual tastes in public space in a sad face. Then I wrote, Dear Shankar Gazong, because straight people have public space and we've been hogging that public space for too long. We have not shared any of that space with people of different sexual orientations. That's a term of deferment, sarcastic too. They're coming out as claiming some of that public space for themselves. They have every right to. We deny their existence and their choices. We've been doing it for so long and still continue to do so. I hope all 9,000 LGBTI persons in Bhutan will declare their sexual orientation, so straight people like you and I may share our public space with them now. It's not wrong to be gay. It's wrong to judge people who are gay. It's time for equality. Thank you. Questions?
Yes. I'm really glad that you spoke to the impact of colonialization because here in America, we tend to gloss over that a lot. And I apologize for not being familiar with the history of Bhutan.
Well, that's already very slow.
Well, I know in a lot of the neighboring countries, historically, there have been trans people or third gender people who were affirmed and accepted in culture. And I was wondering if Bhutan has a history that includes that, and also if currently if trans or gender nonconforming folks are more accepted, less accepted than their homosexual counterparts.
We don't really have, now if you were to look at the history of transgender in the region where I come from, in India they're respected. You have them, they're called the hijras, and they enjoy a certain status in society, but we didn't have that ever in Bhutan. It does not exist in the vocabulary or in the knowledge of my grandmother's generation. So then the first transgender story that came out and that made everybody sit up and say, but this doesn't happen in Bhutan, was this boy in the 8th grade who decided he wanted to stay in a girls' boarding school and dress like a girl, and then it became uncomfortable, and then the principal was like, no, you can't do that unless you wear, we call it a code, so we wear our national dress back home. We can't admit you to the school because it's complicated. But then the education ministry intervened and said, if he feels comfortable wearing a kira, let him wear a kira, and so that he can continue his education. So that was the first public story on a transgender person. And then she was very, I call her a she now, because now she's trying to get her name changed to a woman's name as well. So this is history being made in Bhutan because we've never had documented. We are a very oral society. Perhaps there were people who existed like that before, but because we're an oral society and don't have many things written down, I'm thinking maybe somewhere along the lines these stories may have disappeared, but we don't have a rich history or a permanent place in the structure of society like in India, for that matter, or even in Nepal. Yes, Martha.
So you're saying that the penal code is a heritage of colonization? Or?
Yes, because we imported it from India and from the British rule.
So since when is it in
2004.
So
because it was laws that was created years before, and we were bringing in Western laws which are not laws of the land. So it was influenced by, but then some laws were just brought in just like that because it was more convenient, and we did not have the legal prowess to actually write something on our own. So then it was worked on with people outside.
So from 2004, from whom did you? Where did it law come from? I mean, in 2004, I don't know any country where in West.
It was imported. One thing is the colonial packages because there was a law left behind in India, and we worked closely with people in India to get this law in.
But in India, it was illegal in 2004?
It's criminal. Still, yes.
Okay.
They're trying to get an article, it's called 377, amended. There's a lot of protesting going on, but yes, it's illegal in India.
Do you think in India, sorry, I don't know if you know, but do you know if in India it can actually be like turned over the law? I mean,
no, it's in Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court turned it down just last year.
Okay.
Yes, so it's still in place. Any more? Yes.
The one thing both Natalia in your presentation, I would love to say that America has always been open-minded, and we open our hearts to the world, and you can do whatever you want to do. I think many of the struggles that you have are struggles that have occurred in America in our lifetimes. I mean, most of the people I worked with that it turned out they were gay, I didn't know until after they were dead. I mean, people said, oh, and he was gay. People who were so secretive of what they did and so forth. And also, there are large portions of communities where they're not having those kind of parades. And there's a lot of issues, and a lot of the protesting still occurs in places. But I think what happens in countries is you begin to realize that rather than a personal preference, it becomes tolerance. And I think that only occurs when you see enough people and enough good people and enough people you've met that people start realizing they don't have to spend worrying about it all of the time. But so I guess that is to take heart that many of these things we've seen here too. And it does over time, but I think you're right when you say it takes the people who are willing to stand up and not only stand up for it, but be good people, that people change their attitude for it.
That's true. Also, something why I decided that we needed to do stories on the LGBTQ community, and like it's just about 2 or 3 stories annually on the LGBTQ community in Bhutan. So there's this impression, and Wikipedia doesn't help at all. I've been tempted to edit it, but I'm like, okay, forget it. Bhutan is a homophobic country. It's not true, because one of my friends who came in as an exchange student, he was gay, and he was really worried. He was thinking, oh my God, they're going to be people. I won't be able to live the way I want. And he comes in and he's like, hey, there's a lot of gay people in Thimphu. They're hanging out together, but a little under the radar, but they're having lives. And we have a lot of expats who come in and have very open gay relations, and we're like, they're not having gay relations with the tree. There's obviously another Bhutanese person involved in the picture, but then they're not ostracized just because they're doing that. And it's but then it's easier to be gay. I know a lot of openly lesbian couples, but the gay men don't like to be very public about who they are, but the lesbians, I don't know, I think parents think it's a phase, or but there's just, I don't know, society seems a little more, I'm not too sure how it is in the States, but back home it's okay for 2 girls to be together rather than 2 men to be together. It's as if that's more natural. Like, I don't know, maybe we've always been, I don't know, maybe women have always been no, I'm not going to say anything sexist. That's it. Any more?
I have a question.
Yes, Natalia.
I would like to know if in Bhutan, the feminist, let's say, group and movement go together with the LGBT advocacy.
Okay. We don't have groups or movements. It's not organized at all. So for the LGBT community, it's a lot of social media support. So I would say support. Not a lot of Bhutanese women like to come out and say they're feminists. I think I would be the only one who likes to shout it out from the rooftops. But no, a lot of people are uncomfortable with it, saying that. But then when you say there's been people from diverse fields who've come out to support the LGBT community. I was one of the first public ones. Then I requested the member of parliament who spoke to me about this and said, yeah, things need to change, and he's worried about it too. So they managed to reach out to him, and then there was this quite a few musicians, even civil servants came out and said, yes, we want to speak. One of the commissioners, the anti-corruption commissioner of Bhutan, she retired recently, one of the most powerful women in Bhutan. She didn't, it was very nonchalant. She put it in her speech to a group of high school students. I think there were like 200 of them, and then she was like, it's okay sometimes if a boy wants to be a girl and a girl wants to be a boy, and blah, blah, blah. And then she just went on, like, it was part of her speech. And then I was sitting there and I was like, oh my God, I'll show you that quote. It's like, wow, somebody of her ranking actually decided to talk about this in public and say, this is normal. So then, there are people who do this, but it's not an organized movement.
So this means that actually there are no representative groups or NGOs that would.
So there is the HIV NGO that I mentioned, but it's just like, yes. Okay. And I have problems with the HIV NGO taking up the LGBTQ cause because it propagates the stereotype that men who are gay are the ones who spread HIV. But then
immediately when you
for the lack, but then because there's no other organization in place and they're actually trying to help them, they get them to attend conferences, they get people to come in and talk to them. So I was like, if they're going to benefit from this, okay. But then there are talks to actually branch out and start something on their own as well.
The person that you showed that was going to commit suicide because they're going to out him. Now, what about outing within the gay community to come on, stand up and let people know? There's none of that, because that's what happens in the U.S. To some degree.
The peer community never pressures. That's what I've told, and it's been confirmed for me that it's up to other people. They know who the other people are, but they never pressure them to come out. But they decide to come out on their own, like the 3 publicly gay guys, and I'm thinking the others might come out. But there's more in Bhutan, more than societal judgment. It's what your family thinks of you that matters the most. And because we live with our families throughout our lives, this is a relationship that we do not want to ruin if the family is not accepting. But they don't really care about what society thinks. It's really just the family.
How is medicine treating LGBT community, and if there are counseling services that really help these people? Because, for example, in Moldova, we have counseling services that try to change actually this orientation, but it's not encouraging to, respect yourself and be okay with it. How is the situation in Bhutan?
Counselors that I've spoken to and psychologists, they never try and change somebody else's sexual orientation. There seems to be, I'm quite impressed by the amount of understanding we seem to have of the LGBTQ community. And another thing that I was impressed by the MSM survey that they had when they went out, and it was because the transgenders and some gay people were doing it, so they were very open. So we don't have hospitals in all the areas because we're on a mountain. It's difficult. There's sometimes there are no roads to villages, so we have something called basic health units. So almost every village has a basic health unit, and even the people at the lowest levels do not discriminate when these people come in for medical help. This is what people in the community have said. They never ask us questions. There might be an anal problem, but then they're like, okay, it's a medical condition, we're going to treat you, no questions asked, which is very, very encouraging for some. So this is why when I go to the health minister, he's like, but Tamge, you know what it is at the ground level. Sometimes when you make too much noise about something, it complicates the situation. We might have to explain ourselves differently. So when you say this is just a normal medical condition, then there are no questions asked, even by the people in the villages. So let us handle it the way we're handling it right now. So it's a bit complicated, the kind of dialogue you have to use when you're back home. But yeah, they treated, I'm glad. They have like other issues, like the transgenders were telling me, sometimes they end up in, well, it's sad, like in other parts of the world, sometimes they don't have the most steady source of income, so they end up gambling or prostituting themselves, and then they end up in prisons. And it's so funny, and you're just like, my God, they're human beings, because they're like, oh, I go to visit my transgender friend in prison, and then I don't recognize her because she's listed as a man, and the cop doesn't know who it is, and she doesn't respond to the man's name, and we go and she's got this thick mustache, and then we're like, oh my God, and she's like, can you give me a razor and a tweezer? It's like, I cannot, but I mean, it's so sad because you don't identify with the body you're in. I can imagine the kind of psychological distress, but these are things that they share.
I was struck by your friend who just came out and was invited back to his grammar school. Mm-hmm. That seems that would not happen in the United States. Certainly for a person that's not well established in his career, other than, but I would think that administrators would be afraid of being criticized and for proselytizing and that kind of thing.
It's not the norm. It was something that was completely unexpected, but a really pleasant surprise. But I'm hoping that it becomes a norm soon, because then it normalizes something that should be normal right from the start. So this is not the norm, but it was a pleasant consequence of his appearance on TV.
Thank you so much, Namde and Natalia. Let's give a big round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you parked in the parking lot and need parking validation stickers, come see me. If you didn't have a chance to sign in, please do so here. And please join us again next Wednesday, March 2nd, as we hear from our final 3 Humphrey Fellows. Thank you, everyone.
Rich, I think you owe me an email.
I can do it on April 12th.
April 12th.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll put it down.
I'm sorry if I didn't. See, I already have it.
You
I
may
don't
have
have
an
your
item.
room.
I'm always forgetting things.
What room are you?
351.
At what time?
2 o'clock.
Okay.
Yellow, I can't get yellow fever. I can't get.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.